uncomfortable answer is that we can only do so much. If a government decides to attack a certain target, the ability of a government to invest resources and money is significantly higher than any private organization out there, or I don't know about any private organization, but most of them. And therefore, if you are targeted, you can only do so much on your own. What you can do, and this is to me the most important component, is to assume that you are going to be breached.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Ariel Parnes. Ariel is the co-founder at Mitiga, which is the cloud and SaaS incident response provider and leader, and he is the former head of the Israeli intelligence service cyber department and also COO. With over 20 years of experience in the IT and cybersecurity sector, Ariel is a retired colonel of the IDF's Elite 82-100 cyber unit and a winner of the Israeli Defense Prize for Tech Innovations at the cyber field. Ariel, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you, Boris. Great to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, it's now challenging times in Israel and also in all our globe because of the current state of the affairs. But I believe that we will have a very thoughtful conversation on the topic of cyber warfare and its application to the current business environment, because it's very interesting and timely. So, but before that, could you tell us a short story about your career path, what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at Mitiga are up to these days?
Definitely. So I started my career about 25 years ago when I started my military service as any other 18-year-old young men and women in Israel. And I joined a unit at that time. It wasn't a famous unit called 8200. Now it's a bit more famous out there, but back in the 90s, it was a less known unit. And I was lucky enough to join in a perfect timing where the unit started building its capabilities in the cyberspace in parallel with the evolution of the cyberspace in the world. And so during the 23 years of service, I had the privilege to be part of the team and later on to lead this team that was building capabilities in the cyberspace for the state of Israel and in different positions in R&D and IT and cyber in the cyberspace. So after this 23 years of service, I retired and I joined forces with the other two co-founders of Mitiga, Tal Moses and Ofer Maor, who are also veterans in the cyberspace, but from the private industry, serial entrepreneurs that had their own startups, successful startups acquired. And we decided to innovate in a space that was not innovated enough for many years, which is the area of forensic investigation and incident response. We realized about 5 years ago that as the organizations are moving to the cloud and adopting cloud and SaaS technologies, they need to modernize their capabilities to respond to cyber attacks. We knew from our own experience that cyber attacks are inevitable. And so rather than just trying to prevent them, organizations also need to try to reduce the impact once they happen. And up until then, the only practice that existed was a very traditional practice for incident response that was applicable for on-premise environments and data centers. We realized that this practice will not fit the new modern SaaS and cloud environments. And so we started building Mitiga towards that end. And during the years, we realized that we actually, through the process of building a solution for incident response for the cloud, were able to build an even broader solution for security operations for cloud and SaaS in general, starting from detecting attacks all the way through investigating and responding to these attacks, all focused on cloud and SaaS environments. And so this is what Mitiga is doing right now. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So let's introduce our topic to kick things off. Could you provide listeners with a brief overview of what cyber warfare entails and how it interests with the modern business landscape?
Okay, so we'll start by talking about the cyber, defining what cyber domain is. When I say cyber domain or cyberspace, I refer to the space that comprises three elements. Computers or devices. Nowadays, they're not just computers. It can be a phone, a watch, whatever device that has computing capabilities. The connectivity between these devices and the human cognition. So, and these three elements are must or essential when we define what cyberspace is. The cyberspace doesn't exist if people don't use or if people don't interact with it. If there is no cognition or human cognition in it, the cyberspace is not interesting. And the same applies if there is no interconnectivity between devices, or obviously if there are no devices. And so cyberspace is the interaction between human cognition, devices, and interconnectivity. In the cyberspace, we see different types of interactions or activities. There could be, social activities in the cyberspace. We see that in social networks and other type of social activities. There could be, or there are business activities and interactions in the cyberspace. And there is also military interaction in the cyberspace, or nation state type of interaction in the cyberspace. That we understand. To the specific domain where military applies power in the cyberspace, we call cyber warfare, where militaries or nations apply power or apply capabilities in the cyberspace to force other nations to do or to prevent them from doing certain things. Cyber warfare, or these cyber activities, are one type of offensive cyber activities. So offensive cyber is anything that applies cyber capabilities to break into a network without authorization. You can do offensive cyber to conduct cyber warfare. That is, break into a network or a device in order to prevent from it to work or to make it do certain things that a nation or military organization wants to do. This is cyber warfare, or it is defined sometimes CNA, computer network attack. But you can also do offensive cyber to conduct espionage, right? Which is breaking into a network, not to prevent it from working or to delete data, but rather to extract data out of it. So this is offensive cyber, but it's not cyber warfare. And so we define here three different terms. We have the cyberspace, which is the space where people interact with machines interconnected. In the cyberspace, we have offensive cyber, which is using cyber capabilities to break into a device without permission. And the offensive cyber can be used for cyber warfare or for cyber espionage.
So in light of these threats, what proactive measures can businesses take to safeguard? We discuss now businesses. We are not operating in the governments and the military areas, so only businesses this time. What they should do to safeguard themselves against cyber warfare attacks, and how can they stay ahead of the curve in terms of cybersecurity?
And so the first question would be, why even private organizations should care about cyber warfare? I mean, if you live in your own house, you don't necessarily care about missiles coming to you personally. There is someone else who's taking care of that, right? The government, the nation is taking care of it. You don't need to protect yourself or your house from missiles. And you don't have your own personal police safeguarding you. So why organizations even care about cyber warfare? And there are two reasons for that. The first one is that some organizations can be targeted by governments, by nations, as part of a cyber warfare. This is usually defined as critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure of a nation is a set of organizations that are critical for the nation's operational operation, or for the nation safety, and for the safety of the and the day-to-day life of the people in a country. For example, hospitals or telecommunication. These are defined, or energy. These are sectors that are defined as critical infrastructure. And so if your organization belongs to critical infrastructure, then your organization can be targeted as part of a warfare conflict. But even if you're not part of a critical infrastructure, you can be by, I would say, even coincidence, or by second or third degree, a victim of cyber warfare. And this is because of the inherent interconnectivity between organizations. You may not be a direct target for cyber warfare, but you may be using a specific vendor, or you may be using a specific application or a specific infrastructure that is somehow connected to an organization that is targeted for cyber warfare. And therefore, for example, if you're a business that is using interconnectivity provided by telecom, you may not be a target for cyber warfare, but the telecom organization may be a target for cyber warfare. And therefore, that an activity against that telecom company could harm your own organization. And so this is why why we need to care, and why the industry needs to care about cyber warfare, even though not all organizations are part of this critical infrastructure. And now the question is, okay, so if I'm an organization, can I even be, what can I do, if at all, to prevent prevent my organization from being attacked by as part of a cyber warfare conflict? And the simple but hard answer, or uncomfortable answer, is that we can only do so much. Mm-hmm. If a government decides to attack a certain target, the ability of a government to invest resources and money is significantly higher than any private organization out there, or I don't know about any private organization, but most of them. And therefore, if you are targeted, you can only do so much on your own. What you can do, and this is to me the most important component, is to assume that you are going to be breached and build your capabilities to detect and respond and recover from a potential breach, rather than trying to build walls around you and assuming that you can do that and prevent someone from attacking you, be it a government or even just very sophisticated criminals outside the warfare conflicts, even just cybercrime. And so you can only do so much to prevent, but you can certainly do a lot to be resilient. And that is in a nutshell, the main recommendation that I give to organizations. Assume that you're going to be breached. Build a threat landscape risk assessment where you understand what is the main risk and what are the different scenarios that you need to be prepared, and start building your preparation setup. What does a preparation setup include in the cyberspace? The first one is the ability to have having a playbook that defines what do you do when you are breached. How do you manage a crisis? And the second and more important component of it is exercising and testing this playbook. This is usually called a tabletop exercise, which is a very simple tool that I strongly recommend organizations to use, because it's as simple as it is extremely powerful in raising awareness to the potential attack, and B, identifying gaps in processes, procedures, tools, and helping organizations build a program to improve these gaps. And so the cycle of building your program to respond to an incident or a breach, testing it in a tabletop exercise, identifying the gaps, improving, then updating your program, testing it again. This is something that I strongly recommend organizations invest in.
It should be a kind of, sorry, just it should be in the framework of a regular risk management exercise or other level of.
No, I think it should be. I think the right approach is this is a regular cyber risk exercise. However, it has a specific flavor. And therefore, when it comes to exercising it and building plans, it needs to be done alongside with professionals in the area. And so you need your security, chief information security officer to be involved. You need your chief information officer to be involved in both building the plan and also exercising it. But it is not just a technology or information or information security issue. It is a risk management component, or it's part of a risk management program with a unique flavor. And so I think the combination of the best practices of risk management and best practices of cybersecurity can be put together in this type of a cycle.
So I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What is a major misconception in your field of cybersecurity and cyber warfare that you kind of strongly disagree with?
Well, I think I would give to one I already mentioned, and the other one it's going to be specific on specific area of the industry. The first one, the first misconception that I think we are maturing in the industry to understand that it's a misconception, but I still see that out there, is that you can prevent cyber attacks from happening. If you do certain things, they will not happen. You will prevent them from happening. And this is a fundamental misconception. The asymmetry between the attacker and the defender is inherent. The defender needs to defend the whole space. The attacker needs to find just one place to get in. And this is why the attacker's job is easier. I've been there. I've done that for many years. It's easier. You just need to find one place to break in, one weak point. And so understanding that the attack is inevitable is essential in building cyber resilience. And we're maturing in the industry, and you just need to read the news to see that even the most advanced and cyber savvy companies are breached. And so just to understand that this is a reality, it's part of the world that we're living in. And once organizations make this switch and realize that it is not about if it is going to happen, but rather when, then they start being more efficient in building a holistic program that both tries to prevent to the extent that is doable, to make, I don't mean by that to say, let's make the attacker's life easier. Yes, we certainly need to do things to prevent or to make the attacker's life harder so that most of the attacks can be prevented. But then the other component is let's build our resilience so that when that happens, the attack remains an attack and doesn't turn into a catastrophe or a crisis or a catastrophe. This is the first misconception that I wanted to emphasize. The second one is about cloud and SaaS. And about cloud infrastructure and SaaS and platforms in the cloud. And the misconception is that while cloud in general is secure, and the level of cybersecurity that cloud provides is very high, the responsibility of cybersecurity remains at the side of the user, and it is not completely covered by the vendor. So if you're using Microsoft Office 365 or Google GCP or Salesforce cloud solution or you name it, whatever, they are doing their job in securing their platforms and infrastructure. However, it is your responsibility to secure your organization, even if you're using their infrastructure. And this is usually defined as shared responsibility. The misconception in shared responsibility is when the two sides point at each other. And so the user thinks that the vendor is covering it. The vendor assumes that the user is responsible. And this is where the misconception of shared responsibility. And so as a user who adopts cyber cloud technology, you first need to understand that the adoption, the way you use it, means that you are responsible for securing your environment, and you need to leverage the capabilities and features that the cloud providers provide. I'm going to give an example to emphasize this point. Most of the organizations are using nowadays Office 365 in the cloud. And you rarely see the old devices, servers of Exchange in organizations. They're all moving to the cloud. And the Office 365 is a very secure, in general, the Microsoft technology is very secure. But that doesn't prevent attackers from breaking into your Office 365 environment and doing whatever they want, either ransomware attacks or business email compromise attacks, etc. We can take business email compromise attacks. And organizations are responsible for preparing for cyber attacks, even if they are using Office 365. It's not Microsoft's responsibility. It is your responsibility as a user. And so one of the things that we realized in Mitiga, we found that the misconceptions creates a gap where when you're a victim, you're using Office 365, you're a victim of an attack, now you need to investigate it to figure out what happened, what data was exfiltrated, and all that. This is where the misconception appears, because most of the organizations don't know that they're responsible in collecting the traces, it is called telemetry, or the logs that Office 365 would generate, and storing it so that when an investigation is needed, this data will be available. And so an organization, and this is a case that we needed to deal with many times, an organization is attacked through their Office 365. You need to conduct an investigation, but the data is not there because of the misconception, because the organization thought that Microsoft will be storing that data, and Microsoft is not storing that data, or even if they are, they do not provide it to you in an efficient way when you need it. It takes more than 24 hours to collect 24 hours of telemetry when you need it. And so if you don't do certain things in advance, you will be managing a crisis with your eyes closed, which is never good practice. And so this is a misconception. Cloud and SaaS, the responsibility for security remains on the user side.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. That's a very deep response from you. And this were perhaps all my questions, although I have a lot of more questions, but because we have kind of time limit, so let's finalize this episode. So perhaps if you would like to have something to our audience that is important, and I forgot to ask you, please go ahead.
No, I just want to say first, thank you, Boris, for this conversation and for having me here. And also, if I could give just one very simple, practical recommendation for your audience, which we discussed earlier, and I truly believe from my personal experience, doing it for many years, that is a very powerful tool, is conducting a tabletop exercise with cyber scenarios in it, and doing it in a recurrent way, generating knowledge out of it, creating the atmosphere that allows people to contribute to it, allows people to make mistakes and learn from them. It's simple. It doesn't require too much. It just requires the right culture. It requires maybe a couple of hours every few months, and it is extremely powerful. It's part of also the culture that I grew up in, culture of exercising and drilling, which is a military culture, and also a great combination between that and cybersecurity. I've seen that being done in many organizations. I conducted a few of this. I participated in a few of this. I did that for tactical level, operational level, strategic level, even for government. And it is always a positive experience that contributes to the resilience of organizations.
How do you call it? Tabletop?
A tabletop exercise.
Okay, interesting. All right. Thank you, Ariel. And I wish you a great success with your company. And I hope we will cooperate further with your company. Where if you have a blog posts or whatever content you produce, you can find your guys on marketing department who can join our community, and you can just post a blog post or whatever events you have. It's free.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Boris. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.